Hi everyone, so today I'm going to do a video and I'm going to try and show you how to make a seascape scene on a collaged piece of newsprint. The reason for that is actually painting onto newsprint is something that I really like, and messing around with different materials to paint on can be really rewarding. You might find something new about how you paint, or you might find the surface feels nice. So I really enjoy painting on newsprint. I like collaging onto acrylic. So I don't really like painting onto very thin paper. So one of the things is about the sessions is to find out what you like doing and what you don't like doing in terms of all the different mediums and materials that we're going to use. So I created this a while back. Oh, I think it's upside down. I created this a while back, and it was doing a touchstone session. Now you can see I've actually done this onto board, and I've actually done a double. So I've done two paintings on one board, and I'll try and get it up a bit close so you can really see the detail of the paper in there, and it just adds. You see those triangles? It adds a little something. It also feels really, really nice to paint onto different materials, and I like messing around. There's some things I enjoy painting on, and there's some things I enjoy less. But it's fun to try new things, and sometimes by using different textures and materials, you can actually find a little bit more about how you paint or how you apply materials, and it's quite fun. So we'll get cracking. So for those of you that don't have board lying around, I'm going to use today an Amazon box, which they're fun, and you get so much cardboard in the world, it's unreal. And one of the other reasons I like this is because it is sustainable. It's, we're using materials in a sustainable way. So you use cardboard, the Amazon box, or I've used pet food boxes, cereal boxes, anything like that. Anything that's a bit hard you can use. And what we're going to do is we're going to cut some up into different sizes. And I apologise if I'm not looking at the camera, but I do find it a bit weird. So I have cut my box up. So I've done an A4 size, and then kind of an A5 size, but a bit bigger. I just like the shape. So don't worry much about the size. Go for a shape that you enjoy or you like the look of. I have got another one here that's got lots of dents in it, so I thought I'd have a play with that. And it's already got some marking on the back, so I quite like the idea of playing with that. Oh, and my A4 one has got a ridge in it, but again, I'm going to have a play with that. And then what I would say is, if you don't feel too comfortable about collage, I think one of the things is when you first do something, we are pre-programmed to do everything A4 in size. And actually, messing around with the shape and size of any surface that we're working on can be really beneficial. It can help us to increase our confidence, so we can then move up and up and up. So these little ones, if you want to do like 4 or 5 of these instead, then actually you might find yourself enjoying it a bit more. So maybe mix and match a bit of everything. And next we're going to move on to collaging the cardboard. So I have a picture that I would like us to use, a reference picture, and what I'm going to do is when I stick the newspaper onto the cardboard, for my first picture, I'm going to think a little bit about the structure. So what I'm going to do is roughly draw the horizon, the outline of the waves, the angle that the wave is coming down the beach, because if you see it's sloped, and then you've got this other slope here, and then you've got this froth here, and froth here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw that onto my board. If you're a smaller board, it'll be a little bit, it'll be tight, but it's just really to get an idea of where everything's going to go. You don't have to do it that way. You can literally just stick stuff on and then draw on, because you're going to draw over it anyway. But I just like to sort of have a play with texture to see if I can help that embellish the image itself. But sometimes what I'll do instead is I will use specific shapes or patterns on newspaper, and I'll show you a little bit more what I mean by that. So first of all, I'm going to take my pencil and I'm going to roughly draw in my horizon. Ooh, wobbly. And then I'm going to draw in that sea, top of that wave. And it doesn't have to be exact, but it's just helpful, to sort of help you plan. It's always good to have a plan when you're creating something. Then I'm just going to put that sea foam in. And then I'm just going to go over it so you can see it a bit better more than anything with this blue acrylic marker. Okay, put that down there. There we go. So I've got a basic outline of my wave. Now I'm going to take my today's Times. Look at that. How thick that is. That's mad. That's like, there's enough in one Times magazine, or one Times newspaper, sorry, to keep me collaging for the next year and a half, I think. But that's great in a way, because there's a Times magazine in there. Oh, now that's quite interesting, because this is shiny, and actually painting onto shiny is completely different to painting onto paper. So I don't like painting onto shiny unless I'm using watercolours. I don't mind it so much with watercolours, but I want to use the paper. So I'm going to use the paper, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to start tearing strips. So just a little note about tearing, really. I'm going to go for quite long strips, and I'm not going to use scissors. You can use scissors if you want to. That's absolutely fine. But I'm actually going to tear mine into nice long strips. So I'm just going to, nice and slowly, and it's going to take a while. So what I'm going to do in a minute is I'm going to stop recording. I'm going to put a podcast on, or some lovely music, feeling like a bit of Ray Charles today, and I'm going to sit here for probably half an hour or so and sort my strips out and leave them in a nice pile. I want the strips to be quite narrow, but I'm going to do some smaller and thinner strips as well for my shorter areas. The bit towards when you look at the picture, you'll see as the wave goes towards the shore, you probably need to do some smaller strips. I mean, you can do this a completely different way as well. You can just like whack it on there. I just like to see what happens when you put the paper on, to play around with the lines that the paper makes and how that interacts with the paint and the water. And it's strange because when you start painting on it as well, once it's dried, it does look especially if you leave it for a few days, it looks totally different. So you'll notice the light levels are changing, and that's because it is 10 to 5. So my lights are on. So I apologise if the video is a bit dark. I'll try and brighten it when I come to edit it. So yeah, I will be back to do my sticking next. If you want a straight line and you're struggling, what you can do is fold your paper, get a pencil, run it down the side of your paper, and it creates this very nice tight line. And then gently pull your paper apart down that line. If you don't want to use scissors, you want a more sort of natural, and that way you get this lovely straight but slightly frayed natural looking edge. So I've got my big pile of paper here now. It looks a little bit like a hamster bed. So my little nest of paper, I'm going to pop that over there. Next, I'm going to take my board and I'm going to get a brush, a little bit of PVA, and what I'm going to do is before I start anything, I'm going to PVA all of the cardboard. I'm not putting it on really thick. I just want to get some on there, and I also want to make the surface a little bit tacky. So you know when we did the dry brush work last week, and I was saying how sometimes it's easier to work on a surface that's got a little bit of ridge to it, a little bit of something on it. But actually, I think, I mean, this is personal preference as well. You might not agree with me, and that's absolutely fine. But personally, I like to collage onto a quite tacky surface. And the thing with PVA is when it dries, no harm, no foul. You just put a little bit more on. There we go. I'm going to squash that around with my brush. Right, now what I'm going to do, sticky, is start putting my paper on. So I'm going to start by the top of the sky. And for this, I'm going to put my newspaper on horizontally because I'm going to change the direction of the paper in different sections of the painting. So if you think about our image, so for this bit with the sky, I'm going to do that all horizontally. You can use bigger bits or little bits. And now, normally when I'm collaging, if I'm collaging with crepe paper, what I will do is I will PVA over the top of it. But when I'm doing this, I actually want the paper to retain a certain amount of, I don't want it to get too wet, I want it to be quite dry. And when the PVA dry, I mean, there'll still be bits of PVA on it. Now what I'll do is I will speed this up so you can watch me doing it quickly. I'm using the bottom of the newspaper to create my horizon edge. So I don't have to try and get it straight. There we go. Just tidy that bit up over there. So I'm actually going to put some PVA on the newspaper. And I'm going to put newspaper over newspaper at the end there. And it's going over the edge, doesn't matter, we can tidy it up. Once it's a bit dry, you can just sort of snip away bits. There we go. Cut off. And now I'm moving into my cardboard is starting to bow, which is fine. Again, it's fine. It'll come back, it'll bring back to life. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to do downward newspaper. So I'm going to try and create different lines in my collage. And the idea is that I'm sort of playing with the perspective. To be exact. That's why another reason my collage is quite fun is, I mean, if you do it, you can do very neat collages. And actually, if you keep your eye out on the Middleton Art House, there's which is a sort of part of the culture co-op, but it's in Middleton. They have got an artist who's doing free sessions there at the moment every now and again. And I think her name's Amanda or Lisa, I can't remember. But they do collaging. They do a really antique version of collaging using old-fashioned botanical images, and they're very exact. They look really cool. So, and they're free, those sessions. I think they're on a Saturday. So if you go onto the, you use Instagram and have a look on there, it's Middleton Art House. I think they're on Facebook as well. Okay, put some more there. Okay. And now I'm going to do my wave. This next part of the wave, I'm going to do this angle. So I'm going to do it leaning towards the right at about 45 degrees. I've got some holes, but that's okay. You can plug them up. More PVA. So it doesn't really look like anything. No, it doesn't look like a wave. I'm not trying to make it look like a wave. I'm going to paint on it to make it look like a wave. But I do want to change the angle. So for the angle below, I'm going to do it in, so it almost looks like I can't remember what this. So I'm going to do it the other way, and again at 45 degrees. So it looks like a chevron almost. Now sometimes, if you're doing collage, you use really small pieces of collage. There's so many different ways of doing it. That's why it's so fun. And if you play with like different directions, different types of paper, different ways of cutting the paper, different ways, sizes of the paper, you might stumble upon something that brings you a tremendous amount of joy, and it's quite playful. And there's a fantastic collage artist called Hannah Hock, German lady, who was around in, I think it was the like 30s and 40s. I think it was like the Weimar period, and she was part of an art collective. But because she was a woman, her art wasn't really considered, art, because that's how it was then. But her work, I'll put some in a group. I think I've got a handout with some information on her. But her work's really funny, and again, she does sort of collage pictures. But yeah, love her work. But she was not quite playful. So next, I'm going to do my beach. So for this, I'm going to marry it to the horizon. So I'm going to do it straight across again. I'm going to start from the bottom. Now let some of it come over, because you can always cut it off. You do get a bit messy. I think the trick as well with collages is with the mess is the more you do it, the more you learn how not to make so much of a mess. And it can be, I'll be honest, I used to hate collage because I hated the sticky. But if you keep persevering, you come up with a process that suits you, and it doesn't get as messy or overwhelming. And that's the key really with, I think, most creative things is watch someone else do it, have a go yourself, and then keep having a go until you come up with a system or process that works for you. Don't worry about how other people do it. Nice wipe it there. Now maybe in your newspaper you might see stuff, so I've just noticed that green, that would have looked quite good. Maybe up on the wave there's a bit more green there, but I'm not too worried about colour for this. I'm more interested in the direction of the, it's a long shape, direction of the paper. It's too big actually. I've said that. Then after I've done this, I'm going to do some of the smaller ones and show you some other ideas that you might want to play with. Get that edge. And what I'm going to do is put them hanging off that edge a little bit, and I can always cut them off. There we go. So that is my collaged piece of board, and then what I'm going to do is let that dry. So this is week 1. So this has taken me probably, all in all, about 20-30 minutes. So if you want, you could do 2 of these, or 3 if you're very quick. I know some of you are quick. You can do more than 1, and then that'll give you a chance to do a couple of these. And then I'm just going to give it a little squeeze where it's starting to bend, and then I'm going to let that dry. So for the smaller board, I'm going to do something a bit different. I'm not going to bother painting the wave on. I'm going to whack a load of PVA on there. And then what I'm going to do is think about our reference picture. Where this wave here in this area, where the waves are crashing, I'm thinking about that one. And say if that area is here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my paper and I'm going to do it in like an explosion. So I'm going to start in this corner, and then I'll do that corner, and I'm going to direct all my paper towards that spot. Stuck to my hand. More blue. I actually need to tear some long strips, so I'm going to stop recording and come back. So I cut these long strips, a bit more PVA. Cut these long strips off. And what I'm going to do is direct them to that spot I mentioned. So it might almost look like an explosion. PVA. A little bit on the, only a little bit on the newspaper because I don't want it to get too saturated. So you can play with shapes and form and space and lines. And sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, and that's fine. You can't get it right every time. It's not all gold. So, I'm going to hang them off the edge, and that's fine. I can sort that out once it's dry. You don't need to put, the other thing I find with PVA is don't put more PVA on until it isn't, like see there, that one is sticking, but now when I put that down, it's not sticking. So you can be, PVA is incredibly tacky, and if you leave it for a couple of minutes, it's a good idea because it gets what I call super tacky. You can get different types of PVA as well. So you can get, like Mod Podge is quite famous for decoupage and collage. It's just a different type of PVA, but it's been made with different, it's got different chemical compounds, so it just reacts differently. And it's very, if you're doing decoupage, it's absolutely fabulous. However, it is a bit pricey, I always think. You can also get waterproof PVA. So the range in Rochdale do a tub of waterproof PVA, which is in their building section, and it's about £4 for a massive tub, and it's not dissimilar to Mod Podge, but you must wear gloves with that PVA because obviously it's very different. And always check the side of the bottle whenever you're buying glue or anything chemical. You should always check the side of the bottle and just check that you might need to wear gloves because it might be a skin irritant. But most of the crafting stuff that you buy is normally okay, but I always check. I'm not a fan of, I used to be alright with it, but I don't know why, but I've developed I really don't want to get too messy. I'm not so bad with paint, but glue. There we go. So I'm starting to get that explosion in the corner going on. Just a little bit more to do. So next is turn for my Diddy square. Now I am a fan of Diddy things. There are a couple of sisters called the Singh sisters who I love. Paint. If you I don't know if it's still there, but they've done some murals at Manchester Museum, in the South Asian gallery, and they're absolutely fine. But they do miniatures, or a lot of their work is based around the process of miniature painting that comes from Asia. And I'm a big fan of miniaturization. I just think that sometimes we're programmed at school to do A4. Things are sold in A4, A3 pads or A5, but actually making things smaller, you know, especially if you're not too confident about, well, not even if you're not too confident, it's just interesting. It's like playing with different. Oh no, I don't want that one to the same colour. Playing with different shapes. So I'm going to do this one. I'm just doing this one horizontally, and just see what happens when I paint it. I'm most looking forward to doing this one. I might do some more of these as well off camera, so I can have a proper play. And then I'm just sticking these strips down, and then I will be going right over the edge. And once it's dry, I will tidy it up. Or not. Oh, that's my son keeps changing my alarm on my phone. It's a crazy sounds. There we go. Oh no, it's too fat. I want it too fat. So again, we've got different texture, different vibe. I want a bit more PVA. Oh, not too much on the edge there. Blop, blop, blop. That's way too big. Do that way. Oh, wait. There you go. And then just another strip up there. That way. Let's put a little bit of PVA on there. A little bit. Okay. So now I'm going to put all these to dry. You can do as many of these as you can in 2 hours, because even if you don't use them all in week 2, you never know, one week you might want to come back to them, or we might do something else with them. So don't worry if you do more than you need. That's absolutely fine. So I have finished my pieces. There's my little one. There's my exploding one. And here is my larger wave. And what I would say is, I know that you might think, oh, I want to color, I just want to paint, and this is prep. And sometimes when you are, not sometimes actually, I want to encourage you to do as much prep as possible. But what I would say is, if you really are not up for it, if you just are like, no, Erica, this is not something I want to do, then you feel free to play and do whatever you like. You could use one of the books to get a reference picture. There's a folder, a red folder, and it's got lots of pictures out of art books that I've put there for you. So if you just want to do something else, then absolutely feel free, don't feel obliged. Next, I will send you a video of painting the collage paper. All right, take care, everyone.